So today we are going to do this poem, Dover Beach by Mathew Arnold. Mathew Arnold, who is a very famous English poet and critic also. He is known for his critics, his opinions that he has given on others' work. From 1882 to 1888, an English poet and cultural critic of Victorian era. Please understand that he belongs to Victorian era. His work remains the best known of 19th century English poetry. He wrote on variety of subjects like nature, modern society, and moral instructions. He was called the third great Victorian poet, along with Tennyson and Robert Browning. So that is what is needed for you to understand about Mathew Arnold. Now let's talk about this poem Dover Beach. Now, this poem was written in 1867. The form of the poetry is a dramatic monologue. It's a dramatic monologue because you will see that only one speaker, the poet himself, is speaking throughout the poem. It presents ephemeral human feelings. Now, please understand, ephemeral means lasting for a short period of time. So, whatever thoughts came to his mind when he looked at the beach, Dover Beach, so, those thoughts, those feelings which he had only for a short period of time, the poem is about those feelings only. And those feelings are known as ephemeral human feelings. It has an elegiac tone. Now, please understand what is an elegy. Elegy is a mournful, sad song, sad poem. All right. So it also has a sad tone. You will see that the poet feels very pessimistic in this poem, having 37 lines supposedly spoken by the poet on Dover Beach. So it is supposed, it is assumed, and as we come to know through the lines of the poetry also, that the poet was there near Dover Beach only, and while looking at the beach, he must have spoken these lines. All right. It has a complicated meter and rhyme scheme. It is rich in visual and auditory imagery. Please understand, imagery is very important in this poem. The poem is rich in visual imagery, what you can see, and auditory imagery, what you can hear. The poet has alluded to the ancient Greek playwright Sophocles to offer a context of growing sadness in the poem. Now, you see, there is a reference of another very famous playwright, Sophocles, who was a classical playwright, who was a classical poet also. So, Sophocles has been mentioned by Arnold in his poem, where he is giving his example. And he says, the kind of sadness he felt when he looked at the Aegean Sea, the same kind of sadness Arnold is also feeling at this time when he is looking at the Dover Beach. Okay, so it is an important aspect of this poem which you need to understand. Now see, look at this picture. This picture is the Dover Beach. Dover is actually a town and major ferry port in Kent, southeast England. It faces France across the Strait of Dover, the narrowest part of the English Channel, and you see it lies southeast of Canterbury and east of Maidstone. The town is the administrative center of the Dover district and home of the port of Dover. So Dover is a town. Now Dover Beach, which has been talked about. So actually, the poet Mathew Arnold was there with his wife, and he must be in some hotel or at some place where through the window he could see the sea facing room he must be having, or the place where he was at this moment. Now let's begin with the explanation of the poem. The poet says, the sea is calm tonight, the tide is full, the moon lies fair upon the straits, on the French coast the light gleams and is gone. The cliffs of England stand glimmering and vast out in the tranquil bay. Come to the window, sweet is the night air. So this first stanza means these lines, you will see that there is an atmosphere of calm, an atmosphere of peace, an atmosphere where we can see that it is silent, no disturbance, no noise. So he says the sea is calm tonight. Please understand, the sea refers to the English Channel that separates South England from northern France, all right, and joins the Atlantic Ocean. So the sea, he says, now he must be looking at that sea, and he says that the sea is calm tonight. There is no disturbance, there is no high tide, it's calm. The tide is full, the moon lies fair upon the straits. The tide is full, the sea is full of water. And the poet observes the fullness of tide and also the moon reflecting upon the waters. Now, please understand, straits means the narrow passage of water. So he says that the moon is reflecting upon the waters, the tide is full, there is calmness, the sea is calm. On the French coast, the light gleams and is gone. Now, suddenly he observes, as I told you, that the sea is what separates, South England from northern France. On one side of the coast, there is France. On another side of the coast, there is England. So when he looks at the French coast, he observes that the light is flickering there. It gleams and is gone. So he sees that the lights on the French coast, they are flickering, they fade away. Now, this light actually, metaphorically, he talks about the light of faith in God and religion, which was once quite strong, but now is flickering. So by giving this line, saying that the light is flickering on the French coast, so what he wants to say, that French people in France, actually, these theories which came and which shook the faith of people in God and religion, people were becoming more scientific now. They, with many inventions and many theories, Darwin's theory of evolution and all, people were losing their faith in God and religion. Earlier, they used to believe, and they used to believe that God is responsible for everything, whatever is happening in this world. But now, with the evolution, with this theory of evolution, Darwin's theory of evolution, when they came to know that the earth is not flat, it is round. So many inventions, many discoveries were taking place at that time, and people were becoming more scientific, and that is why they were losing their faith in God and religion. So for that, the poet says, when he says that, no, like the light gleams and is gone, means light is flickering. So he means to say that the light of faith in God and religion, which was once very strong, is now flickering. While the cliffs of England stand glimmering and vast out in the tranquil bay. He tries to draw a kind of comparison between France and England. He says in French coast, on the French coast, he observes that the light is flickering, it's fading away, while the cliffs of England stand glimmering, shining, and vast out in a tranquil calm, tranquil bay. Tranquil means calmness. So as he sees that French coast, the light is flickering, while the cliffs of England stand tall and bright, and the bay seems calm. So in this way, the poet looks at his own coast also. First, he observed the coast on the other side, which is the French coast, and he saw that the light was flickering. But when he looks at his own coast, he sees that the famous white cliffs, cliffs, why are they white? Because they are made up of chalk. So the famous white cliffs of England, they are shining, they are standing tall and bright. So the line hints that, according to the poet, if there is any hope left in this dark world, it is to be found in England. Because other parts of the world are losing their faith in God and religion, but still England has it to some extent. Come to the window, sweet is the night air. Then he asks, you see, he addresses the companion. The companion must be his wife only or his friend. Come to the window, sweet is the night air. So he asks his companion to join him at the window and experience the sweet scent of the night air. Only from the long line of spray where the sea meets the moon-blanched land, Listen, you hear the grating roar of pebbles, which the waves draw back and fling at their return up the high strand. Begin and cease, and then again begin, with tremulous cadence slow, and bring the eternal note of sadness in. Now you see, just before this, he was saying that the atmosphere is very calm, everything is sweet, sweet is the night air, and that's why he asked his companion to be there with him. Now suddenly, instead of looking at the beautiful landscape as a whole, his attention is turned to a specific point. And what is that specific point? Where the sea meets the land, where these large waves of the sea, they strike on the land. And that land has been referred to as moon blanched. Blanched means whitened, whitened because of moonlight. So the bright moonlight makes the entire area look white. So he says that suddenly his attention goes to that place where the sea meets, where these sea waves are striking on the land. Okay. He sees where the large waves in the sea meet the land covered with moonlight. And then he observes that something is not quite right. Now, what is it that is not quite right? The kind of sound that is produced by these waves when they strike on the land. Okay. Now, the next few lines you will find are in contrast to the pleasing and peaceful description of the seashore, which he has given earlier. Now, see what he says. He asks his companion, he says, listen, you hear the grating roar of pebbles, which the waves draw back and fling at their return up the high strand. Begin and cease, and then again begin with tremulous cadence slow, and bring the eternal note of sadness in. Now the speaker instructs his companion to listen to the sound of pebbles. And the sound of pebbles is produced when these waves strike on the land. So these pebbles are shifted, the waves shift the pebbles back and forth, up and down. So he is talking about those movements. And the speaker notices this slow repeating action. All right. And he identifies it with eternal sadness. See what he says. You hear the grating roar of pebbles. Grating roar, you see, roaring sound of pebbles, which the waves draw back and fling at their return. Which the waves draw back, they shift them. The waves, once they come to the land, they take these pebbles with them. And when they again come, when they strike again, they throw them at their return. When the waves return, they throw them up the high strand. Strand is the shore. Up the high shore, they throw them on the shore. Begin, the waves begin and cease and stop and then again begin. So this never-ending movement of waves has been referred here with tremulous cadence. With tremulous means trembling. Cadence is the sound. With slow trembling sound. And with that sound, they bring the eternal note of sadness in. Now that sound, he compares to a kind of sadness. See, what sort of sadness? Sadness over regret at the loss of faith in God and religion. The validity of long-standing theological and moral precepts were challenged by scientific postulates. All right. So because of, as I told you, many scientific discoveries, inventions were taking place, many theories were coming at that time. See, in Arnold's world of the mid-1800s, the pillar of faith supporting society was perceived as crumbling under the weight of scientific theories, such as of English physician, English naturalist Charles Darwin, French naturalist Jean-Baptiste Lamarck. So, consequently, what happened? The existence of God and the whole Christian scheme of things were cast in doubt. As I told you, in Christianity earlier, people used to believe that everything happens because of gods. They believed in their religion, they believed in their gods. But now, because of these theories, people were losing their faith. They became doubtful about their own religion. Arnold, who was deeply religious, he really did not like this. And he lamented the dying of the light of faith, as symbolized by the light he sees on the Dover beach on the coast of France, which is flickering. All right. So that is why he says, now suddenly he realizes some kind of sadness. And that sadness is produced by the sound of these waves when they strike on the land, and when they take the pebbles, when they shift the pebbles. So this never ending movement of the waves striking on the land, it produces a kind of sound, and that sound he is comparing as the sound of eternal sadness. Eternal means infinite, never ending sadness. I hope it's clear. Now he alludes to Sophocles. You can see the picture here. Sophocles long ago heard it on the Aegean, and it brought into his mind the turbid ebb and flow of human misery. We find also in the sound a thought, hearing it by this distant northern sea. Now see, here I have shown the picture of Sophocles as well as Aegean Sea. Now he alludes Sophocles. Suddenly he is reminded of this Greek playwright Sophocles, and he imagines him that he also long ago heard it on the Aegean. It here refers to this sound of sadness. He says that Sophocles also heard it once on Aegean Sea, and it brought into his mind the turbid ebb and flow of human misery. Now, this ebb and flow is high and low tide, the way, metaphorically, he is giving all these examples from the sea only. So he says that the same kind of sadness was felt, was heard by Sophocles on Aegean Sea, the way Arnold could hear on this English coast. To Sophocles, the sadness was about the endless suffering of mankind. All right. So he says that like Sophocles, we find also in the sound a thought. Like Sophocles, in this sound of striking of waves, he also finds a thought when he hears it by this distant northern sea. So he compares human misery to the constant motion of the sea, the turbid ebb and flow. See, Sophocles was one of the most famous writers of tragic plays and in ancient Greece, and his surviving works, written throughout the 5th century BC, like Oedipus the King, Antigone, these are very famous works, which are still read. Okay, so he is comparing, the kind of feeling which Sophocles had at that time when he looked at Aegean Sea, and he also heard this sound, and this sound, made him realize the kind of sadness, and what sort of, in Sophocles' cases, it was the sadness about the endless suffering of mankind. In Arnold's case, it is the sadness about the loss of faith in religion and God. The sea of faith was once too at the full, and round earth's shore lay like the folds of a bright girdle furled. Now he talks about his problem, the kind of pessimism that he's having at this moment. He says the sea of faith, faith in God and religion, was once too at the full. Once it was so strong, the way a sea is full of water. So this sea of faith, faith in God and religion, was also full once. And round the earth's shore, and it surrounded the earth's shore, it surrounded the land on the earth like the folds of a bright girdle fold. Girdle is an ornamental belt. So the way an ornamental belt is worn around the waist. Similarly, to explain his thought further, the poet describes the religious faith as a sea which was once full like the tide. And at that time, it surrounded the earth like a girdle, like an ornamental belt. But now, earlier it used to be like that. But now, I only hear its melancholy, long withdrawing roar, retreating to the breath of the night wind, down the vast edges, drear and naked shingles of the world. But now, he's being pessimistic here. And he says, but now what I hear is melancholy, long withdrawing roar. So again, he's talking about the sound. Auditory imagery has been used over here. What I hear is melancholy, sadness, sorrow, long withdrawing roar, retreating, returning to the breath of the night wind. Breath of the night wind is that air. The same air which he was calling earlier sweet. Now the same air seems melancholic to him. Down the vast edges, drear and naked shingles of the world. So the speaker says that with the retreat of the waves, the return of the waves, he hears that melancholic sound leaving behind the cold wind. Cold wind, which has been mentioned as the breath of the night wind down the dull shores, and leaving the mass of round pebbles on the shore naked. This is what happens. See, the poet explains the gradual loss of man's faith in a grand and suggestive simile. He has compared the faith in religion to a sea that surrounds the world. Like the sea principally Christianity he is talking about, once girdled the world like an attractive ornament. The sea had its full tide, but now it's receding, it's reducing with a mournful sound over the pebbles. The grating of pebbles brings the eternal note of sadness. The passing of faith causes the minds to be isolated in the border between belief and disbelief. It is a sad state. When the poet hears the grating roar of pebbles on the sound, it reminds him of the melancholy, long withdrawing roar of faith. Because the power of religion meant to give unity and meaning, but now it is waning, it is fading. All right, it's getting faded, it's getting pale. Our love, let us be true to one another. For the world which seems to lie before us like a land of dreams, so various, so beautiful, so new, hath really neither joy, nor love, nor light, nor certitude, nor peace, nor help for pain. See, now he talks about the only hope which is left in the world right now. And according to him, the only hope that is left is love. So he tells his companion, he says, let us be true to each other. We should be true to each other. Forget whatever is happening in the whole world, but we should have a bond of love so strong that we should be honest to each other. We should be true to each other, because love is the only thing which can let us live in this world, which can let us sustain in this world. Otherwise, the world, which seems to lie before us like a land of dreams, so various, so beautiful, so new. Now, he calls this world a land of dreams. Why? Because there is no reality. It is like a dream where it seems so various, so much of variety is there, so beautiful, so new. But actually, it hath neither joy, it doesn't have joy, love, light, certitude means certainty, peace, no help for pain. So it doesn't actually offers all this. We think like a dream, it comes to us, we always think of it, land of dreams, full of variety, full of beauty, new things arriving every day. But actually, it doesn't have any of these. It doesn't have any joy. It doesn't have any love. It doesn't have any light. It doesn't have any certainty. Anything can happen at any time. It doesn't have any peace. And it doesn't even have any help for pain. So these lines highlight the bitter reality of life, where the world is like a land of dreams, where we expect joy, where we expect beauty, but it doesn't actually have that. And we are here as on a darkling plain, swept with confused alarms of struggle and flight, where ignorant armies clash by night. Now he compares this collective situation to standing on a dark flat. Darkling means in the dark. Plain is the flat land. So we are here on this dark land, swept with confused alarms of struggle and flight. We are standing here. He compares the situation, this collective situation, as if we are standing on a dark land and we are caught up in chaos of fighting, where we are swept with confusions and struggle, where ignorant armies clash by night. And ignorant armies clash by night. They fight in that darkness only, not knowing who belongs to their team and who belongs to the enemy. Okay, so this world is like a battlefield. People are fighting against each other. They are struggling to survive. Faith and humanity is forgotten. The world is deceptive. So this way, the poem ends on a note of pessimism. All right, because the poet is actually feeling pessimistic. He's feeling hopeless that people are losing faith. The humanity has been forgotten in this world. Faith has been forgotten in this world. That is why there is no joy, and the situation is really critical. I hope you have understood the poem.